Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Navallabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Bhajajanranjana Bhajajanranjana Yasodhanandana Bhajajanranjana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Jaya Radhamadhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radhamadhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janvallabha Giridhari Gopi Janvallabha Giridhari Yasodhanana Bhajajanranjana Yasodhanandana Bhajajanranjana Yamunatira Banachari Yamunatira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Tadasata Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Gantaraj Ki. Oh, glorious is symbol devotees. Oh, glorious is symbol devotees. Oh, glorious is symbol devotees. Oh, glorious to Sri Guru and Govardhana. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, text number 22, entitled Devahuti's Lamentation, which hasn't begun yet, but we're right in the middle of a very, very exciting chapter in her life, and there's a little bit of conflict here, so we'll find out, see what's happening. Idrigriham tat pasyantim nati pritena cetasa sarva bhuttasya vigya pravachat kardamashvayam idrigriham tat pasyantim nati pritena cetasa sarva bhattasya bhigyana pravachat kardamashvayam idvigriham tat pasyantim nati pritena cetasa sarva bhuttasya vigyaha pravachat kardamashvayam Ladies? Itrik, such, griham, house, tat, that, pasyantim, looking at, na atipratena, not much pleased, cetasa, with a heart, sarvabhuta, of everyone, asaya abhigya, understanding the heart, pravochat, he addressed, kardama, shvayam, personally. Translation, when he saw Devahuti looking at the gigantic opulent palace with a displeased heart, Kadama Muni could understand her feelings because he could study the heart of anyone. Thus he personally addressed his wife as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Devahuti had spent a long time in the hermitage, not taking much care of her body. She was covered with dirt and her clothing was not very nice. Kadama Muni was surprised that he could produce such a palace, and similarly his wife Devahuti was also astonished. How could she live in that opulent palace? Kadama Muni could understand her astonishment, and thus he spoke as follows. Durgame parimendasya skalatpatir gatim husvakripa stadhanina shantashandavalambana mama gyanat marandasya jananjana salakaya chaksurun Militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So as most of you know, I was following my path of yoga down the bottom, and I was just about to put the phone away in the car and go to yoga, and the phone vibrated in my hand, and I got called up here to give class. So the upside of it is that the possibilities of talking about this are endless. Whatever comes into my mind, you're just going to receive it. So I don't know where we're going to go, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that we can talk about in this particular sloka. So just while I was reading the sloka, I was just thinking that Prabhupada's saying that, actually it's described in the Bhagavatam, that the opulence of this palace. So in the material world, sometimes we see that you see the houses of the rich and the famous, right? So they show some mansions, $50 million mansion, right? Like 25 bedrooms, 16 kitchens, a palace, a theatre, a swimming pool, whatever even a helicopter pad sometimes. Your imagination runs wild, and you think, how can one person possibly enjoy in such a place like that? It's almost beyond our conception. So here we have a palace that is created by a Muni. For those, some of you who haven't been here, our friend here hasn't been here for a long time. So, yeah. So I'll just recap what this place looks like, because he created this because Devahuti had performed so many austerities for such a long time, and being a princess, still he could see that some of her desires were unfulfilled, like she wanted to have children and so on and so forth. It was a wonderful structure, bedecked with all sorts of jewels, adorned with pillars of precious stones and capable of yielding of whatever one desired. It was equipped with every form of furniture and wealth, which tended to increase in the course of time. The castle was fully equipped with all the necessary paraphernalia. It was pleasing in all seasons. It was decorated all around with flags, festoons, and artistic works of variegated colours. It was further embellished with wreaths of charming flowers and attracted sweetly humming bees with tapestries of linen, silk, and various other fabrics. The palace looked charming, with beds and couches, fans and seats, all separately arranged in 7 stories. Its beauty was enhanced by artistic engravings here and there on the walls. The floor was of emerald with coral daisies. The palace was very beautiful, with its coral thresholds at entrances and its doors bedecked with diamonds. Gold pinnacles crowned its domes of sapphire. With choicest rubies set in its diamond walls, it appeared as though possessed of eyes. It was furnished with wonderful canopies and great valuable gates of gold. So it's said here in the purport that the eyes actually shone in the dark, so you didn't need electricity and you could still see in the dark through the reflection of these eyes. Massive, amazing stones. Here and there in that palace were multitudes of live swans and pigeons, as well as artificial swans and pigeons, so lifelike that the real swans rose above them again and again, thinking them live birds like themselves. Thus the palace vibrated with the sounds of these birds. The castle had pleasure grounds, resting chambers, bedrooms, and inner outer yards designed with night to comfort. All this caused the astonishment to the sage himself, which sort of brings us to Gautama Muni and this creation of his. So I thought maybe I don't think anybody's talked about the Munis up to this stage, but a Muni, as you can see, is a very, very powerful thing, a powerful person, and the magnitude of his creation, this is just like unreal. Like we can talk about the palaces of King Indra and all the other different palaces there. And this is in that realm just created by the mind of a Muni because he wanted to please his wife. Of course, Devahuti is bewildered by all this, and she's trying to come to some understanding as she was performing all these austerities for so many years, just in her heart, just living of fruits and gathering firewood, and all of a sudden, step into this palace, my darling. So there is a little bit of bewilderment there, but I just want to explain the position of Muni, of a Muni, because we've had a lot of famous Munis in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and perhaps if we understood a bit more about their capabilities and where they fit into the scheme of things within the structure of the universe. So I was just reflecting upon all the different Munis and what we know about them. So I may throw it open to all the audience here. Can they sort of speak about, or can they tell me the names of some of the Munis that they're familiar with, or some stories about the Munis, their favourite stories? So who do we have? Maybe we'll start with the ladies. Any Munis that you know of? Think somewhere. Durvasa Muni is a very famous Muni. He's a movie unto himself. He could make so many movies. I've got a story about Durvasa in a minute. Yes, anybody else? Nara the Muni, yeah, Nara the Muni, he's one of the 12 Mahajans, what can you say? Who? Maitreya Muni. Yes, I haven't got him here. Very good. Anyone else? Huh? Shabari Muni, I'm glad you mentioned him, yes. Parvata Muni, yes, I have him here. Or do I? No, I don't. Vasistha. And if you've got Vasistha Muni, you have to have Vishmavitra Muni as well, yeah. So, Parvata? Oh, Chavana Muni, yeah. That's no very interesting. So all these, So, just about all the Munis that I've got here have been listed. So these Munis are very, very special. So they're throughout all different pages of Bhagavatam. And the common denominator with all of them is their exhibition of their prowess, what they're actually able to do. So you might say that these Munis, they have knowledge of the universe, like you can say they've cracked the code. So they can manufacture so many things, just like in that movie, The Matrix, you crack the code of all the different numbers. So how do the Munis do this? Well, they do this by performing these amazing austerities. So we have knowledge of some of the austerities that the Munis performed. Of course, Kadama Muni, he, for a very, very long time, just engaged in penances and austerities, and he engaged his wife into helping him. Already he was a Muni, he was very powerful, but then he developed even more powers. So it's said that we have, like the Munis, they've got all these powers like the mystic cities. We know about the 8 different mystic cities. We've been speaking about them last week. I think a couple of speakers spoke about all the different ones. And there is a planet up there in the universe called Siddhaloka, where all these residents know these mystic cities. And sometimes these mystic cities are exhibited, even this day and age, in very, very small quantities by other people, other yogis, who've performed austerities to achieve them. But the Muni is he's the virtuoso of the music profession, just like you have the violinist and the pianist, and so they perform a virtuoso, they do a solo performance and the whole orchestra backs them. They're like stand out. So the Moonies just stand out way above all the residents of Siddhaloka, and they're there in the universe. So they've developed these powers, and the powers have just come through massive austerities. Like we have the case of Subramuni, who meditated in a lake. He held his breathing for so many years. He didn't even have to breathe. He could control his breathing and his life airs. And then we have Vishwamitra Muni, who was meditating in the Himalayas, and he was covered in ice particles. And, we know these situations where we go to Himalayas that it is freezing, but the Muni, he's actually able to withstand all that. In fact, I just thought comes to mind that it is said, it's commonly known, probably in the Bhavishya Purana, that Russia is named after the rishis, the land of the rishis, because the rishis like to go somewhere and perform austerities like in Siberia or a very cold climate, so it's the land of the rishis. So this is the Muni, and with this comes great powers, awesome powers, just like even Kadama Muni. He amazed himself by creating this palace. But one thing we learn in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which has been specified so many different times, is you never offend the Muni. If you see a Muni, you just sort of pay respect from a distance. You don't try to sort of engage a Muni in any sort of way or in any manner. Just like, I've got a couple of cases here, like Devasa Muni. There was one instance there where Devasa Muni was performing meditations in Navadvip, actually, because all the Munis were sort of Tri Kalagyana, all-knowing. They knew that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be coming there, so Devasa Muni was performing austerities. And there were some boys playing close by, and they saw this yogi with all his dreadlocks hanging down and even on the ground, right? So they thought, oh, well, let's play a trick. So one boy snuck up to Devasa Muni and lopped off a bit of his hair. And Devasa Muni immediately was aware of that. And even though he was a boy, he said, you've committed you've offended me greatly. I curse you to become a crocodile. And the boy's going, no, we're just playing a trick. He said, oh. And the boy is begging him, please, retract the curse. He said, I can't retract the curse, but you're going to be in this lake until Lord Chaitanya comes and liberates you. So consequently, for how many thousands of years, this crocodile terrorized all the sadhus who wanted to bathe in the lake. It's a very sacred spot. It's at I think a lot of you have visited it. It's at the Halahari temple. It's a little temple there in the middle of the field, back with Sarabi coins that you go there, and the deities painted half Lord Shiva and half Lord Vishnu. Right? Beautiful. And then behind there, there's this lake, and that's where the crocodile used to reside. And one time, Lord Chaitanya went on a Sankirtan party. He used to go all over the 9 islands of Navadvip. He'd be chanting there. He was chanting there, and this crocodile come out, and he liberated the crocodile. And the boy, I think he was from the heavenly planet. I don't know where the boy from, but he liberated the crocodile anyway. So that was the blessing of Devasa Muni that Lord Chaitanya would liberate you. And then we have Narada Muni, who was walking past, and the sons of Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigods, but they were sort of puffed up by their the opulence of their father, I guess, and their prowess, that they were demigods. They were very handsome and so on and so forth. So they were sporting with some ladies in the lake, and they were naked, and they didn't really care that a Mooney was coming past. So the ladies all went and hid themselves, but they stayed in the lake, and Narad Muni saw them in their nakedness, so consequently he cursed them to become trees, just to learn a lesson. But they weren't any ordinary trees, they were special trees. They were the twin Arjuna trees. Well done. So once again, they got liberated by Krishna, who, it was just an amazing story how him being tied to a mortar just sort of dragged this heavy mortar in between the two trees, and this little baby just keeps crawling. These big trees, like, they start to shake, and all of a sudden come down with this huge thud and shook the whole village. What's going on? What's going on? Oh, these trees are falling down, and Krishna's laughing, playing, and these great big demigods come out, and there was Nanda Kavera and Manigriva, and they thank Krishna for their liberation, and all the residents come running up to the scene, and they go, what happened? What happened? They're seeing Krishna playing there, and these two trees lying on the ground, and the boys are going, well, you know, Krishna, he got the grinding mortar, and he was crawling along with the grinding mortar, and he went in between these two trees, and they come crashing down. These great people came out, these great wonderful souls came out, offered their obeisance, and they disappeared. And the resident goes, these boys, they make up such stories, you know. So the Munis, so don't offend the Muni. So Kadama Muni, he's got this massive austerity. By his austerities, he's created this wonderful, wonderful place. And, you know, Devahuti, she's bewildered by this opulence. I was also thinking that, like, you know, sometimes when you don't have opulence and you come into contact with opulence, you do become bewildered, even in this, you know, even here on this earth planet, that some people in some countries who have very little, they come to some who don't have many possessions, material possessions, come to another country where they see everybody having so much, then they desire to be like them. Like the prime example probably would be if you're in India and you're travelling in India, you'll see all the roads with the potholes and, you know, all the traffic, and it's sort of the fastest you can go is about 70 kilometres an hour or something. And then these people, they come to the west, and you've got the freeways and the highways, all these modern cars going there from here to there. And he's bewildered by the opulence. How is this? That's just a small example. So, so sometimes the Munis, they get bewildered by their own opulence. They are so powerful that they, they're performing the austerities, and then they identify with themselves as being the most powerful, that there's no one that can come into opposition with them, and then they come crashing down, just like they get a lesson from Krishna, from the material energy. And this is recorded in the Srimad Bhagavatam, talk about Vishvamitra Muni. He was a great yogi meditating in Himalayas, and then it's the material world that King Indra became jealous that he was wanting his position. So he sent one of his heavenly damsels from the palace to go and disturb his meditation. And this particular damsel's name was Manaki, very, very beautiful Apsara. And she had these wonderful ankle bells that tinkled so sweetly. And Vishvamitra Muni was meditating, and then he heard the tinkling of these ankle bells. Tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. And his meditation became disturbed. He opened his eyes, he saw this damsel, and once again he wanted to his desires start to well up in him, and he wanted to take Grihastha ashram and enjoy the facilities of the material world. But more so than the story I really want to talk about is the story of Sobara Muni. You mentioned Sobara Muni. So Sobara was also a great Muni who went under the water. And he was meditating in the water, and he was there for such a long time that he got to know all the fishies in the water. They'd be all swimming around, and there was a sort of harmony there between the fish and him. And the environment got disturbed when Garuda came down. And Garuda, of course, is the carrier of Lord Vishnu, but he feeds on fish. So Garuda came into the waters and started to eat all the fish around the waters, and Sabara Muni had this particular attachment that, these fish are being swallowed up by this, giant bird. He warned the bird, don't come here, don't come and eat this fish. If you come again, this fish will curse you, like that. So the bird flew away, but what he didn't understand, that Garuda was Lord Vishnu's carrier, and he was actually a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, so he offended a great devotee. So consequently, after some period of time, Sobara Muni was still meditating in the water. He opened his eyes and he saw two fish having sex, reproducing, and he became agitated. Now, point is here that it's such a trifling event normally that, like as people here, as human beings, we go past, we see the birds having sex, the bees, the butterflies, the farm animals, and it's not really agitating for anybody. It's just a fact of life that this reproduction is going on. It's the material energy. What to speak of two little fish? Right, so he opens his eyes, and there's two fish having intimate relations, and immediately his mind became agitated, and he thought, yes, it's time for me to get out of here and enjoy the material world. He comes racing out. He's been meditating in the water for like 10,000 years, right? And he goes onto the land, and he sees these beautiful ladies that were daughters of the king, and he thought, yes, I'll marry them. And he comes up to the king and he said, I want to marry your daughter or daughters. And the king looks at him, and this guy's just come out of the water. His body's all wrinkled, when you're in the water, that your skin becomes all wrinkled, you look like a prune. He's old, his hair is grey, it's matted, his skin is all sort of shriveled up. And the king's going, I don't know what to do here, because he's a Muni. If I say no, then he'll probably curse me. So I'll just let the daughters choose. They're not going to take this old, wrinkly, dried-up old man. I mean, my daughters want someone who's young, handsome, strong, got a lot of wealth. That's what they're after, so I'm pretty safe here. So, yeah, sure. I'll send all my daughters. He had 50 daughters. And he said, you take your pick, okay? So then, because he was a Muni, he was able to change his form and immediately transformed himself into a young, handsome, virile person. And all the daughters come along, they all wanted to marry him, right? So he married them all. So all of a sudden, Sabara Muni, one minute he's in the lake meditating, performing all these austerities, and next minute he's using up these austerities to have a household, provide a house for all these ladies, and he, in due course, I can't remember how it all transpired after so many years, but then he realized that he's just getting more and more entangled. The more he tries to please the princesses, the more he tries to please himself on the material level, the more frustrated he becomes. And finally he had that realization, I've really blown it. This is my sort of foray into the material world, but the happiness isn't really here. That's why I rejected this. I was meditating on the water. What happened? Of course, we know what happened, that he offended Garuda. And so once again, it said that he took all these princesses and he started to perform these austerities again. So So we have, we have the asuras also, that they perform these austerities. They also develop these mystic powers, even to greater extent, like Hiranyakasipu, Hiranyaksha, all the demons that Kamsa had, like like Bhatana witch and Urkeshi demon, Agasura, Banasura, Vasusrestha. They're all great yogis that performed austerities, and they could change their shape at will, and they had so many things, so many powers, but they all come undone. So the aspect about the Munis is that they are so strong and they can manipulate the material energy, but when it comes to actually understanding their own, so the Munis, they have so many austerities, they can form so much, but sometimes they become undone by this sort of own what do you call it? Own sort of prowess, yeah. So I think of fame, adoration and distinction, that sort of sinks in. And the material energy actually overpowers them. So we have the instance of the devotee, actually, who is actually, like Haridas Thakur is the great example here, where he's performing so many austerities by his chanting, that he's vowed to chant 3 million names a month or so. It's like 100 and I don't know how many rounds, 196 rounds a day. So for most of the day he's chanting Krishna's names enthusiastically, just meditating on Krishna, and then he's developing so much fame and reputation, and all the people are coming to see this great sage just chanting in the cave. And then the local governor, whose name is, I haven't done my study, I only had an hour, was it? I don't know. So the local governor, seeing that this sadhu's in a cave and everybody's going, is becoming very jealous. The brahmanas, the Hindu priests, are saying, who's this person? Is upsetting the whole culture here. He's not even a Hindu, he's a Muslim, and he's chanting these names and he's creating such, can you please dispose of him? So the king thought, well, okay, so we'll get one of the court ladies here who's very, very attractive and beautiful, and she'll go there and try and lure him into having conjugal relationships. She hasn't failed before. Material nature. So he sent this lady there, a very, very beautiful lady there, to tell Haridas, I want to become, I want to know more about Krishna, or more about you, whatever. So she's sitting there, and Haridas says, yes, I'll fulfill your desires, just wait till I chant my rounds. And he's chanting Krishna, he's totally undisturbed by what's this lady's presenting, the energy this lady's giving out, Normally we can feel the energy sometimes, the interaction between men and women, that energy is there, and she's there in the cave. And Haridas is just, I've got a few more rounds to go, just bear with me. And then she fell asleep. He'd been chanting for so long, she fell asleep. I said, oh, you fell asleep. Well, anyway, it's a new day, I have to chant my rounds again. So, so he starts chanting his rounds again, and she falls asleep again. After the third day, she'd heard Haridas chanting, and his chanting was so strong and so pure, he was just speaking to Krishna directly, that she also became influenced. And she broke down and said, actually, I got sent here, and if you had have succumbed to my desires, then the king would have had you defamed, and he would have killed you, like that. So she apologized to Haridas, and she became his disciple, and eventually Haridas left the cave and she stayed there, and she shaved her head, and she just chanted the holy names of the Lord, and everybody realized the potency of Haridas, and she was protected and she was looked after like that. And that was Haridas. She couldn't be touched. Even Maya herself, she heard about his qualities, and she also came to test Haridas, but she couldn't actually penetrate couldn't penetrate with her Shakti in any way or form because of the potency of Haridas himself. So this is the power of the devotee always, that the devotee doesn't need all these great powers and whatever Krishna brings his way, then brings his or her way, then they can utilize it in Krishna's service and adapt. That is the process of Krishna consciousness. As they say, utility is the principle, right? Preaching is the essence. Purity is the force. Books are the basis, and purity is the force. So that is our credit, and this is our legacy that Srila Prabhupada has given us. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Or yes, microphone's coming your way. So there's the microphone there. Comes a time.
Thank you, Vasu.
Thank you.
Such an impromptu class, very nice. I was thinking when we in the verse where it said that Kadama Muni could understand Devahuti's feelings, where she was feeling a little dismayed with his amazing opulent palace, because he could study the heart of anyone. Firstly, I thought it's really nice that he's not just presenting some object, but he could also understand what would make her happy or what was displeasing her. So I was thinking, there are so many examples of Srila Prabhupada actually being able to understand someone's heart. Like just instances where someone was praying for something specially, or something was niggling them, some problem, whatever, and somehow or other Prabhupada would just go right there.
Just go straight to the source, yes. I probably felt that, I got that experience myself once. I just asked Prabhupada one question about Vedic culture or whatever, and the Aryans, and Prabhupada said Arjuna's he's the true Aryan because he's a devotee of the Lord, and he wasn't really sort of concentrating on answering my question. He was concentrating about who the person was who was asking the question, and that arose, from that, the fact arose, what is this person? Who is he? Why isn't he a devotee? Why are these devotees not living in the temple? So that was his thought process, you might say, well, how come this guy's not living in the temple? What are you doing there, So, that's like, Prabhupada understanding the heart, was just trying to, someone's trying to make a contact with the spiritual master, they ask some question, and the question is just a means where you can, you're waiting for some instruction for the spiritual master, so he sort of avoids the question, he just goes straight to the source of what your
That happened to me too. Same thing, we're on a walk in Melbourne. I mean, I'm nothing special. I never had any, great dealings with Srila Prabhupada. But I got to ask him a question, or no, actually answer a question. He was looking at all these buildings in the distance in Melbourne, these big high-rise buildings. And he said, why do they build these big high buildings? And I sort of said, these architects, they want to leave something behind that they'll be sort of known by, that I was the designer of this tower or that tower, something like that. And in my heart, there was some attachment to architecture and stuff like that, it's pretty fancy stuff. And Prabhupada just sort of went, zunk, he said, it's the same as the washerman's donkey. He said, this donkey is feeling so proud that he can carry this huge load of washing. Exactly, you know what I mean? Just cut to the essence what was in the heart.
Yeah, Shruti Prabhu was talking about that he was Prabhupada's servant, and sometimes Prabhupada would ask a general question, why is this here or something, and he knew that it was a trap, sort of like said, whoever answered that question fell into the trap, because this is the sort of result of where Prabhupada goes straight to the source. Krishna Kirtan, Prabhu.
Just a comment, maybe a comment further. It's very intriguing, because generally we see with demigods where they build structures as endeavour and as architects, engineers, materials, and what to speak of interior decorators, but this had incredibly, he manifested this extraordinary palace. I was just wondering, does he get involved in all the details in his meditation, or is just, who comes up with even the colour scheme?
It's just like he said, he even amazed himself that, just like perhaps it's just it fructified, his desires just fructified, just like you have a little seed, you have an oak tree come from this seed, it's all there in the seed, but, all the fine details, I don't know if they're in yet. As he said, he cracked the code in the universe, so he just sort of put it into motion, and then everything just sort of unfolded like that due to these powers that he had. Other Munis might create something just like Selva, who created that palace for Selva, Lord Shiva. So, there's different sort of creations according to, to your prowess. I guess the point is that these Munis, they're sort of outside of the universe. I was going to talk about how, there's different connections, like we are in these, we're in Kali Yuga here, so we don't understand our facilities, but in different ages, like in Satya Yuga, because, people like this, they meditated for so many years, they were able to achieve the higher planets or go back to the spiritual world, like Bhagavad Gita says that a devotee can attain the higher planets and then go to the spiritual world. So in Satya Yuga, my understanding is, according to the Bhagavatam Rita, that the yogi who meditates and is successful in his meditation, he goes to Tapaloka, because that's where the meditation is, right, on Tapa. So there, the yogis meditate on the Lord within the heart, and he reveals himself in so many different ways, in so many different forms as the Lord. Of course, in the Brihad Bhagavatam Rita, Bokuma, he didn't get a chance to chant his mantra, so he was really agitated, but the Lord that's the process in Tapaloka. And then in the next stage, which we have, which is Treta Yuga, so Jagya is a form of a way to go back to Godhead. So, of course, from Tapaloka, because you're meditating on the Lord, you get transferred back to the spiritual world at the end of your life. So in that yuga, in Treta Yuga, you're doing all these fire yagas, and through that process, if you're successful, you go to Mahaloka, where they're performing all the fire yagas as the ways of liberation. So Purush, the Purush comes, Adi Purush comes and he personally accepts the offering. So you're performing all these fire sacrifices, the Lord has come and you want to perform another fire. So it's continual, and that's the process, and you go back to the spiritual world that way. So, of course, Bokuma, he couldn't wait in between, he wanted to see the Lord all the time. So then in the next stage, in Dwapara Yuga, the process is temple worship, opulent temple worship. But at that stage, because there's contamination there, they all talk about Svarga Loka. It's mentioned in the Mahabharata, how everybody goes to Svarga Loka. So Svarga Loka, the Lord also appears, but it's not on the same level. And then we come to Kali Yuga, and there's none of that. There's no Svarga Loka, there's nothing, There's not even any liberation, because there's no Dharma. You need Dharma to have moksha. So we're lost in Kali Yuga. So all we have is Lord Chaitanya comes and gives us this sort of, portal, where by chanting Hare Krishna, it's just simply chanting Hare Krishna, we go back to the spiritual world, straight back to the spiritual world on a higher relationship. This is just such a amazing boon, amazing gift that, you know, like it's way beyond these palaces that dreamt by Kadama Muni or whatever. We just don't realise the potential of what we're actually receiving, honestly. Jai. Oh, one more. Quick. 2 minutes to go.
Just very quickly, on this verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the first thing that enters the mind of Devahuti when seeing this, rather than being astonished, I mean, Prabhupada says she was astonished because of the creation, but also she was thinking, I'm dirty and I have no servants. Like, I'm not ready. Like, you're giving me this palace here and I'm not prepared for this.
No, just a change of consciousness. Yeah, total change of consciousness.
And it precipitates what he asks of her next,
that's
in
the next verse, which is going to be discussed. Mukunda Maharaj coming tomorrow. He's coming. So that's in the next verse, you know. Kadama Muni addresses this one. Yeah, you're so afraid, my dear. So anyway, thank you. Yeah, all glory Srila Prabhupada.